Before I take my text, I want to say something to, again, cover three things. I usually don't do this during preaching time, but for the benefit of you who are listening by Facebook, we're glad to see you. But to remind you, take this virus seriously. Mask up. As I said to the Parish Commission Tuesday, I really admit, secondhand germs is also as deadly in a way as secondhand smoke. So look at it from that angle. The mask is designed to protect everyone. So please follow the safeguards. Wash your hands, stay safe, stay apart. This virus is nothing to play with. I lost some friends. This virus that for a reason, good people. It doesn't discriminate from black or white, Democrat, Republican, sinner or saint. So please take it seriously. Second thing, register to vote. Changes are needed, but pray them out, pray them in. Vote them in, vote them out. So it's crucial that you make sure you're a registered voter. If you haven't voted in 4 years, chances are you've been dropped off the rolls. Third thing, make sure you're counted in the census. Go online, 2020, gov, /census, and fill it out if you haven't got it in the mail. Take that in the spirit that is given. Now, if you have your Bibles, I want you to lift these words from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 1, 32nd through 34th verses. Mark 1, 32 through 34. That evening after sunset, look again, that evening after sunset, it's about to get dark, the people brought to Jesus all the sick and demon-possessed. And the whole town gathered at the door, and Jesus healed many who had various diseases, and he drove out many demons. But he would not let the demons speak because they knew who he was. A useful subject, God on the night shift. God on the night shift. One thing that the invention of the electric light bulb did, it allowed people to work at night, even into the wee hours of the next morning while it is still dark. As people can now work 24/7. And one thinks about it, a lot takes place in the night, especially to make our civilization function or tick. Think about it for a moment. Janitors sometimes clean office buildings, making it ready for the next day. Your mail is sorted either for delivery or sent to its destination, making it ready for the next day's delivery. And sometimes construction roads are fixed. And this construction takes place beneath the glare of floodlights at night. I remember my first real paying job at the Fairmont Hotel in Dallas, Texas, was during the night shift, or what was commonly called then the graveyard shift. While I had to wait on guests either in the restaurant or in room service, I would go to each floor in 2 towers and collect breakfast orders that were hanging on the door to give to the waiters who would work the next shift at 7 a.m. while janitors cleaned up the other restaurants, restrooms, halls, dusted the chandeliers, and accountants and cashiers adjusted the financial records to reflect the previous day's income. And even while we toss and turn, a lot takes place during our night's rest on the night shift. Even in the Bible, great events took place as God worked the night shift, such as the first Passover, where the firstborn of Egypt died, and Israel was set free by the hand of God, and Pharaoh let God's people go. The events at the Red Sea, when the wind blew all night that Israel could cross over, Gideon's victory over the Midianites, and of course the birth of our Savior and Lord, shows that God works the night shift. In the Gospel of Mark, after synagogue service and the healing of Peter's mother-in-law, we are told that evening after sunset, the people brought to Jesus all the sick, the demon-possessed, and he drove out many demons, but he would not let them speak because they knew who he was. Our God then not only works in the daylight, but during the evening when men turn after hours, and choosing to heal those souls in the evening after the sun had set, reminds us of these words from Psalm 121, 3 through 6. He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade tree on your right hand. And the sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. On this journey we call life, traveling in the midst of two viruses. One named Corona-19, which is wreaking havoc over the bodies of millions, and Corona-1619, which is that germ of racism that has infected this nation since its founding. We can have hope that our God works the night shift. Amen. And that reminds us of several truths. First, again, look at the text. That evening, starting at verse 32, in Mark 1, after sunset, the people brought to Jesus those who were sick and demon-possessed. Now, again, that says, in the New Testament Greek, there are two words for time: chronos and kairos. In other words, number one in your notes, God's timing is not our timing, as he does not mark time by our clocks, nor by our watches. God's timing is not our timing, as he does not mark time by our clocks or our watches. Again, in the New Testament, there are two words for time: chronos and kairos. Chronos, which we still use in words like chronological or anachronism, refers to clock time, time that can be measured by seconds, minutes, hours, and years. But kairos time means the appointed time in God's purposes. When God acts, when the time is fulfilled, his purposes to act out his agenda, it refers to an opportune moment or season, such as harvest time. Chronos is quantity, that is, minutes, and seconds. The ticking of the clock. But kairos refers to qualitative time, or speaks of time well spent despite hours, minutes, and even days. By human standards, Jesus could have, in the minds of some, been resting. He could have been chilling, for the sun had set and it was evening. The day had been far spent, but well spent. He had gone to the synagogue, preached, and taught so good that his preaching and teaching taught the hell out of those who were in attendance, even to the point that he cast out a demon. Then he, as we would say, left church and went home with Peter and Andrew along with James and John for a Sabbath, or what we would probably call Sunday dinner. Prior to the dinner, though, look what he does. He heals Peter's mother-in-law, who waits on Jesus and his disciples. But rather than sit back, he chooses to heal the sick, the demon-possessed. You can argue with him that he was tired or weary. But remember, in his presence, before his all-seeing eye, before his being all light and powerful in the dark, are the same. The time to answer prayers, the time to move in mercy, the time to teach of his love is always. The grace is always in season, in good times or bad times, pain or joy, up or down. We sing that song that Daddy Peoples sings. He's an on-time God. But it's better said he's an in-time God. Solomon says in Ecclesiastes 3:11, he has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart, yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. Many people have a microwave mentality when it comes to God. Life, my brothers and sisters, is like a recipe. Most recipes don't turn out right because the instructions of the cook were not followed. Add too much of this, it's bad. Add too little of that, it's bad. Leave it in the oven on the stove too long. Take it out the oven too soon, it's not right. Undercook it, it's still bad. You say, well, what about the microwave? Well, the same thing. You can leave it in the microwave too long or too short. You will still make a mess of a meal. Sometimes people want to, quote, help God again. That is trouble. For one cannot rush him. You can't rush nature because flowers bloom at their own pace. Crops ripen in time and on time. When it comes to the meat supply, adding chemicals is proven to make people sick versus letting them develop on their own. So you shouldn't try to help God. That's why Abraham and Sarah messed up. Amen. And little Ishmael came along. Patience to some is a vice, but in God's scheme of things, it is a virtue, a blessing. E.C. McKenzie writes this: patience is bitter, but the fruit is sweet. Like the farmer, you cannot sow and reap in the same day. In the midst of divine design of things, God's clock may not chime, alarms do not always go off according to our settings, but rather in providence for our blessing and his glory. Paul says in Galatians 6 and verse 9, let us not become weary in well-doing or in doing good. Don't get tired. For the proper time we will reap a harvest if we faint not, if we do not give up. Amen. And in 1 Corinthians 15:58, Paul writes, therefore, my brothers and sisters, be ye steadfast, unmovable. In other words, stand firm. Let nothing move you. Always give yourselves fully to the work of the Lord, because you know that your labor for the Lord is not in vain. Second, To say that God works the night shift not only means God's timing is not our timing. He does not mark time by our clocks and watches. For us, though, the night may represent the end. But with him, evening speaks of new beginnings and fresh starts. I want you to see this. After the sunset, in verse 32, the people brought to Jesus, this is evening, the sick and demon possessed. Now, notice too, the people must have had an inkling that it was an opportunity, because it says the people brought them. You ought to see a crisis as an opportunity to do some good. Hello. Some people saw that because they knew the presence of Jesus would outweigh what time of day it was. Consider these words from Genesis 1, verse 5. And there was evening and there was morning, the first day. Notice what it says. It does not say morning first and then evening, but evening came first and then morning. The Jews reckoned the time of day calculated from sunset to sunset, versus as we do by the sun, which is midnight to midnight. With effective moments of the sun in the daylight. Humans then reckon life and time from the morning perspective. As the sun rises, gets brighter until noon, then begins its journey to the western horizon until it is night. Morning means opportunities, new beginnings, fresh starts. But as time progresses, things get stale, lose their luster and their charm. And humans see night as the finale, the climax is over, the end, as far as opportunities are concerned. But with God, not so. Evening for him means a fresh start, a new beginning, a new possibility. Many things happen beneath the veil, under cover. At night in the dark, we cannot see. Never forget that for every crisis, there is an opportunity for things to turn around. And we see this in this present crisis. Amen. And the pandemic has brought the crisis to the forefront of health care. That the country has not faced it to. And the whole thing about racial unrest has brought to the forefront America. You have opportunity to get this thing on race finally straight. Amen. It brought those two evenings, bring about new possibilities. Never forget that for every failure, there's a lesson to learn, because one will know what will not work. If you fail, you know what ain't going to work. With every burden, never forget, God does bring forth a blessing. Never in times of difficulty does God see and often turns the tables for something good for his own. Never forget that for those who trust in him, things may seem dark, but as the sun goes, y'all don't hear me, there's a bright side somewhere. Amen. And may I say, there's a bright side everywhere. Amen. Because while it is dark, where you are is light somewhere else. Amen. I remember a conversation with my brother. He was driving my father to Shreveport, taking his sister to the doctor, and a terrible rainstorm came up. And his sisters told him, why don't you pull over? And he said, no, keep driving. He slowed down. And finally they drove out the rain. They drove through the rain. And Daddy said this: you always drive through a storm. You don't stop. All right. And remember that no storm's going to last forever. Amen. Right. As the sun goes, there's a bright side somewhere. There's a bright side everywhere. Yes. And I learned that when I was flying from California to Detroit. It was kind of spooky because got what's called the red-eye flight at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. And we flew. And we were in the dark, and all of a sudden, we hit the light. Just as the sun was coming up in the eastern horizon. In other words, there's a bright side somewhere. For if we draw closer to him and see things from his vantage point, live out in faith, the meaning of Proverbs 4:18, which says, but the path of the just is as a shining light that shines more and more unto the perfect day. Amen. Third, to say that God is on the night shift says his timing is not our timing. He does not mark time by our clocks and our watches. Nor for us it represents the end, but with him evening speaks of new beginnings and fresh possibilities. But thank God, this last point, God does some of his greatest work. And number 3, greatest miracles in the dark. I'll say it again. He does some of his best work, his greatest work, in the night, on the dark. Look at the text again. Those 3 verses. That evening, after the sunset, it was night. People brought to Jesus. People did. They saw the crisis that their neighbors had as opportunity for healing. All the sick and demon possessed, devils. The whole town gathered around the door. Here it is night. And that's when you don't want company. And Jesus healed many who had various diseases and drove out many demons, but he would not let them speak because they knew who he was. You know, back in the day before we had digital cameras, and you took a photo, a picture, the film was processed in a dark room, where if direct light hit the film too soon, it would ruin the pictures. Sometimes God will put you in a dark room because he's trying to develop a picture of his son Jesus and to give you a fresh picture, y'all don't hear me, of God in your life in the dark. In the dark, healing takes place. That's why from cuts to severe wounds or bandage, and the restoration process begins, because it does not need to be open to the air so it can heal. Seeds burst forth to be the soil and push their way up in terms of leaves and roots, grow deeper out of sight. In other words, when you plant a seed, you ain't going to see it growing. But it's in the dark. It's out of sight for a while. And the areas of business, store shelves are replenished like at Walmart. They're clean, they're restocked. Offices are clean in preparation for the next day. Students and teachers prepare their lessons for the next day at night, usually. And many a saint, literally and figuratively, has been picked up, has prayed in the dark. And God moved in a mighty way. How many of y'all can say that? You do it. Night in your life. Come on. Yes. Might have been sickness. Amen. Might have been lack of money, trouble. You in the dark, but you called on his name. And his light shone bright. Come on here. He made a way out of no way. He healed your, y'all don't hear me. He healed your body. I know what I'm talking about. 2 years ago, they found a lump here in my chest. It was night. And the doctor said it wasn't cancer. Come on now. I turned that car into a chapel and praised him. Thanked him. Even police pursue criminals at night, fire and put out fires, and emergency rooms to treat patients at night. And in some cities at night, the garbage, the trash is picked up from the side of the road. And sometimes especially in some cities, they recycle. That is, they'll tell you put your cans, your glass bottles, your plastic bottles in a separate container. Or you've known people, for example, they'll pick up cans that have been run over, mashed, stepped on, come on, tossed aside. But you see, the trash folk sometimes see garbage as jewels. Trash in some folks' hands can be treasure. And that's how the Lord sees us. Come on.
Amen.
Some of us been stepped on, mistreated, tossed aside. Come on. Nobody so good at us. But if it had been for the Lord. On our side.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you.
And so it is, my brothers and sisters, that Jesus recycles that evening in terms of healing and restoration. In other words, when he healed folks, he restored them. He recycled their bodies for his praise and glory.
Amen.
And to enjoy life in general.
Oh, yeah.
So what is delivering from the power of the presence of demons but delight and the mind and spirits are ready for his purpose.
Amen.
So it is at night when some of his most wonderful works are done that men may know he's God and that there is no other. In the night of crisis in our culture, our Christ is showing himself strong.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
It is then at night, my brothers and sisters, that we see the beauty of the stars,
Oh, yeah.
the splendor of the constellations. Psalm 19 verse 1 tells us, the heavens declare the glory of God,
Oh, yeah.
and the firmament shows his handiwork. In other words, he's saying, for God to make the universe was, so to speak, child's play in his hand. And when he redeemed us, he had to flex his muscles.
Oh, yes.
That's why Isaiah says, to whom the arm of the Lord is revealed. He's talking about the muscle. His muscle was Jesus.
Yes. Yes, Lord. Thank you, Jesus.
And so, as I hurry to a close, so when one discovers that it's the night season, don't panic.
Amen.
Don't lose hope. I know for many of us, and we look at the headlines every day,
Yes.
you get what I call the two V's. The virus of Corona-19 and the violence in the street.
Oh, yes.
It gets depressing. But I tell you what, as I said the other day, that they call this virus Corona. Because when you look at it under a microscope, it looks like a crime. But I want to tell you that there was another crime that a man wore that could cancel out Corona
Yes. Yes.
Oh, yes.
in his time.
Yes.
And he wore a crown of thorns.
Oh, yes.
And he wears a crown in glory.
Yes. Yes.
And those two crowns are going to cancel out when he gets time, Corona.
Yes.
So remember, you see, if you're going in the night shift, you're not by yourself.
Amen.
Because you can divide humanity into one of three categories. You're either in the night shift, you just getting out of the night shift, or else, yes, you going to a night shift. So my brothers and sisters, if you're going through the night shift, you have a working partner with you. You see, my brothers and sisters, y'all don't hear me. The Lord is moving in the night shift for all of our lives. In the night of sickness, can I get a witness? He moves. In the night of hunger, he moves. In the night of nakedness, he moves. In the night of pain, good Google mover, he moves. In the night of despair, he moves. In the night of disappointment, I'm preaching anyhow, he moves. In the night of viruses, he still moves. In the night of a spiritual virus, violence and racism, he moves. In the night of political corruption, he moves. Because I tell corrupt politicians like Trump and that crowd, you might get by, but you ain't gonna get away, because the God I serve, he doesn't lie, because he says you're gonna reap what you sow, and he's gonna have the last word and the last laugh. Oh, my brothers and sisters, in the night of storms, he'll sure enough move. But if that ain't enough evidence that he'll move, just look at history. In the night of slavery, he moves. In the night of overt and covert white supremacy, he moves. In the night of Nazism, he moves. In the midst of a Stalin and a Khrushchev and a Hitler, Soviet communism, he moves. In the night of segregation under George Wallace and that crowd, he moves. In the midst of Italian fascism under Mussolini, can I get a witness? He moves. In the midst of Roman oppression, when you had Caligula and Nero and Diocletian, he moves. I'm going to preach it out. In the midst of Napoleonic imperialism in France, he moves. In the midst of Tsarist oppression in Russia, he moves. In the midst of Leninism and Bolshevikism in Russia at the beginning of the last century, he moves. And I tell you what, I'm a witness. In the midst of Trumpism, he moves, and he super moves. He will, can I get a witness, flex his muscles. He's going to come forth strong, and he's going to save his people. He's going to break the yokes that bind men. He's going to break the chains, and he's going to set America straight and tell her to put up or shut up what you got on paper. You got to treat everybody right. You got to have equal justice before the law. I tell you what, he moves, because I told somebody, it took somebody that nobody knew, and we watched as it were a modern day crucifixion. The man begged you 20 times, please sir, I can't breathe. Please, sir, help me. Please, sir, have mercy. And what was meant for evil, God meant for good. It outraised the world. And the Confederate monuments came down like rocks. And America had to look at herself and say, you think you all that? You said in God we trust. The trust is not a noun. It's a verb. If you don't trust me, America, then put it on paper in public policy. Don't you know what I told Isaiah to tell you? I don't like your festival. I don't like your rallies, but I want justice for the poor and the needy. And America's going to have to put up or shut up. America's going to have to fess up and tell God we're sorry, because the sinner preaching now. Read that verse. He said, if my people will call by my name, that's what he says. He says, repent. We have not repented as a nation through this crisis. He's tired of feel-good preachers that's getting a cotton candy gospel. Listen, preaching like that is like cotton candy. It is sweet, but it'll melt in the heat and ain't got no nourishment. God wants some meat and potatoes, some collard greens and cornbread preaching, some sound doctrine that'll tell it like it is. And I told somebody, listen, if you do what the Lord says, men will try to hem you up, they'll try to hold you back, and I tell them, if you do what's right, that's God's problem, but God ain't got no problems. If I'm a preacher, there are 2 words that are not in his vocabulary. That's problem and impossible. Oh, I remember by my own experience when I was pastoring a few years ago. The deacons didn't want to pay me. They were trying to run me off, and I went home. I said, all right. I tell you, when I see y'all next Sunday, I'll be here telling y'all the story of the cross. It's all right. And when I got home, it's Christmas time. My mother looked at me, and I guess the Holy Ghost told her they didn't pay him. She said, they didn't pay you. She said, don't lie to me how you lie to Mama. I said, no, Mama, they didn't pay me, but it's all right. I'm going to trust the Lord. I tell you what she did. She went and, like she would always do for her children, wrote a $300 check and came in my study singing, God will take care of you. And I wept and said, Mama, you ain't got to do that. I should be paying you for all you've done for me. She said, baby, you are my child, and I'm going to take care of you as long as I can. There was nobody but Jesus. He saw the deacon would pay my preacher, but I'm not going to let him starve to death. I'm going to send a blessing through his mama to help him on his way. I tell you what, the God I serve will work on the night shift. If you don't believe, I got to hurry up and close it. It's getting good up here. Yes, brothers and sisters, if you don't believe me, just look in your Bible. He works the night shift according to the scriptures. In the night of Pharaoh, he moves. In the night of the walls of Jericho, he moves. In the night of oppression, the time of Judges, he moves. In the night of Goliath, he moves. In Ahab and Jezebel, he moves. In the night of Nebuchadnezzar, he moves. The night of Darius the Great, he moves. Darius in the time of Esther, he moves. In Herod the Great's time at night, he moves. Herod Antipas, he moves. Herod Agrippa, he moves. And Nero, he moves. Yes, God will work the night shift. But I got to hurry up and close, y'all. But I feel good up here. The last night shift he worked was on a hill called Calvary. You see, he went from midday to midnight. He was the victim of police brutality. And Jesus, according to one preacher, suffered a black experience. They beat him all night. But as the old preacher used to say, I still say it, they stretched him high and they hung him wide. He died. How many of y'all know he died? He died until the earth reeled and rocked like a drunken man. He died until the saints sat up in their graves. Died until the soldier at the cross defected and became a soldier of the cross and declared that surely this was the Son of God. He died until the saints, until the Son fainted at a maker's blood. Died until the earth opened up a mouth and vomited up the dead. He died. He descended to hell and knocked the hell out of hell. He died, but he didn't flinch before death. I can see him on the cross and death began its grip on him. He said, go ahead, death. Hasta la vista, baby. Go ahead, death. You better give it your best shot. Go ahead, death. Make my day. For death, do you know who you're bothering? Do you know who you fooling with? Death, I'm the first and the last. Death, I'm a bread that'll never get stale. Death, I'm water that'll never run dry. Death, I'm a song that'll never set. Death, I'm victory that's never overcome. Death, I'm a flower that won't fade. Death, I'm David's shepherd. I'm Jacob's Shiloh. Death, I'm Isaiah's Prince of Peace. Child given, child born rather, and son given. Death, I'm Daniel Lion's tamer. Death, and the 3 Hebrew boys fire extinguisher in the fiery furnace. And death, I'm Abraham's wreath. Go ahead, Abraham's ram. Death, go ahead and put 9-inch thorns in my feet and hands. Go ahead, lash my side. Go ahead, put me in the tomb. But 3 days later, just put a watch by the grave. Watch me 3 days later. And as the record says, I can see him getting up with resurrection power. I can see him going out the grave. Asked him, where you going? He said, I got an announcement to make. Why don't you tell Fox? They'll fix it. CNN, MSNBC, CBS, ABC won't tell it. NBC will mess it up. They'll try to make it something else. I got one word for the world. I got one word for the Trump, and that I once was dead, but I'm alive forevermore. He died. Do you know that he died? He died, but early on Sunday morning. Early.
Thank you.
Sunday morning.
Sunday morning.
Sorry.
Thank you, Jesus.
He got up
Thank you, Lord.
from the dead.
Oh, yes.
I remember
Thank you, Jesus.
Yes, Lord. Thank you, Lord.
first job I had
We love you, Lord.
was on the night shift.
Oh, yes.
When Maitre D came in the morning, he had a British clip. Mac, how was it? If I had this customer half tip, this customer complained too much. This didn't go right, but I had a good night and made a little money. And after my shift was over, went back to the dormitory, took a shower, and rested. Well, one of these old mornings,
All right now. Hey.
the Maitre D
Oh, yes.
of the universe is going to ask
Oh,
you
yes.
about your stewardship.
Yes, it
Yes,
is.
yes.
And you can tell him I had to cry sometimes.
All right now. Hey.
Oh, yes.
I was misunderstood sometimes.
Yes, yes, yes.
I was lied on sometimes.
Yes, yes.
I was broke sometimes.
Yes, yes, yes.
Come on, church. I was sick sometimes. But otherwise, I lived a good life to your glory. And he's going to say, servant of God, well done. Enter to your master joy. You've been faithful over a few things.
Yes, Lord.
But I'm going to make you
Oh, yes.
ruler
Yes.
over many.
Over me.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Jesus.
Oh, yes.
Those are church open.
Thank you.
They got one of their songs. They sang Jesus, keep near the cross. Jesus.
Precious fountain